Welcome to The Blended. My name is Eric. A little bit different today, huh? Golly. Always telling on myself.
Yes, you are.
No microphones.
It's going to be a little different today, but we're going to power through.
I think we can.
Just like a blended family. You power through.
You do power through no matter what.
Today's going to be a toughie because the thing about being in a blended family and being a parent in a blended family is that you always have to be above the fray, right?
Yeah.
Like last time we were talking about titles, navigating that can be so difficult, right? And specifically, what this is kind of an extension of that conversation, being that with one of your daughters, you went from Eric to Mr. Eric or Daddy?
Mr. Eric.
Okay, Eric, Mr. Eric, Daddy, and then back to Eric.
Yeah.
So there are variations.
Well,
something might not stick, or again, because a stepchild can be conditional, and their love can be conditional, that can sometimes show or represent itself in what they call you.
Yeah, and there was just one left off, probably.
Just
oh.
a eh.
Yeah, just a
Couldn't even manage to finish it.
Yeah, I can't even say your name. Say your name. I can't do it. Yeah, so many different amazing highs, amazing lows in that raising.
Right.
Or just, you know what? Sometimes I say raising like it's a one-sided situation.
Right.
But the flip side of that is being raised.
Right.
Right. And we have so many of these things that we call like daddy issues.
Right.
Or parent issues.
Mm-hmm.
My mind gets a little bit more clearer as time goes on.
Yeah.
On what everybody is going through at that moment, and how everybody's problem is like magnificent.
Right, so magnified to them.
Right.
They're so focused on how they feel, you can't see how the other party feels.
Right. The one side from a step parent's point of view is 87% of the time you cannot show the magnitude that you're feeling.
Can I ask how you came to 87%?
Because I would be lying if I didn't say sometimes it bubbled over.
Okay, and you're saying your character was somehow diminished at least 13% of the time.
I didn't say my character was diminished.
Okay.
I'm going to say there was times that I'm sure that I was overwhelmed with emotion that probably said things that I probably shouldn't have said, or even acted in ways that I wish that I probably said, I probably shouldn't have did that.
Right.
Examples, I don't have any. But
those will remain unknown.
Those will remain quiet.
But I think the important thing here is that despite that 87%, right, 0.5, which really rolls over to 88, right, for rounding up.
I like to round down.
I like to round down just for
right.
safety.
Yeah.
Character is important because despite whatever that child is calling you,
right,
because Daddy feels amazing,
right,
and going from that to Eric does not feel good.
Right. Sometimes you don't even allow it. Like there's times in my life where, and this is probably where that some people call it character, some people call it hurt, where you say that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Like you're a child and you're being conditional right now.
Right. And your character never changed in that you, as much as maybe you were hurt or angry, or the case may be, your treatment of that child did not change.
Right, and like I always told my girls, they said, "You're mad." I'm never gonna be mad at you. Never. I'll tell my kids that to this day. I'm not mad at you.
So what is it? Disappointment?
Disappointment.
There's a feeling.
Disappointment.
Okay, got it.
Right. My little girl, Sevi, will be like, "Dad, are you mad at me? I mean, are you disappointed in me?" And I'll look at her sometimes, and at 7 years old, I don't use the disappointment card yet.
It's too early.
It's too early,
yeah.
Right? I'm like, no, you
just I feel
learn.
like you don't know that until like preteen, teenage age what disappointment really means. But that's the worst thing you want to hear from your parents. So you can be mad at me all day, it's cool, but tell me they're disappointed and then like, my heart's gonna break.
Right. I'm like, oh, I'm not. You're not. No, you haven't disappointed me. Just you've made a mistake.
Right.
Right. Let's not do that again. And then of course she'll do it again. And then I'm like, are you disappointed with me? Chill out.
Yeah.
But as you get older, I'm like, come on, would you be disappointed in me if I didn't feed you?
Right, of course you would.
Would you be disappointed in me if I didn't show up to your event? If I just kind of said, I don't want to be there?
Right.
So when they get a certain age, you can say, come on, that level of disappointment. So the way you're using your emotions and the way you're using your feelings and how you're arbitrarily deciding when you can and cannot, based on me being a dad. This is a dad decision.
Right.
This is the decision that I have to make in order for your survival. Whether you think it is at the moment. And hindsight being 2020, I could have been wrong within that 13% of so deeply about it's your survival. But even now, looking at it now, I might say, okay, well, that really wasn't a landmark decision right there. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to, be all in on that.
Right.
But it came with good intention.
Right.
And so with, changing names and all of that stuff, that's just so many more levels.
Right, there's so many nuances there. And that's, I think, the kind of extension of the conversation we had last week, in that, how do you deal with those nuances, right? You've had the conversation, you've spoken with your spouse, your partner, about what you feel is appropriate, the respect that you're due. You speak to the children about what you expect out of them.
Right.
Mr. Eric is baseline, you can take it from there, right?
Right.
Then they get comfortable, and you get comfortable with Mr. Eric, and then it goes to Daddy. That feels amazing.
Right.
But then what happens when it goes to Eric?
Right, and then
how do you deal with the nuances of all that?
Well, because you're only going to say Eric in a disrespectful tone.
Correct.
Right? Because you don't, like I said, there's nothing I can ever do based on how I've been designed that would make me go back to Eric.
Right.
Right. So probably not going to allow you in my presence to just say Eric.
Right.
You're probably, if anything, if you're going through something, it'll be Mr. Eric to you.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just how, that's just respect.
Right.
Because I know you're going through your little teenage, emotions. But it doesn't feel good. But then the opposite of it is being called daddy as a weapon. Right?
Okay, explain that.
So you can be called daddy, and I'm sure a lot of step parents have been called daddy or mommy as a weapon to the other parent, as a weapon to use when you see that can pull on the heartstring.
Oh, taking advantage of the daddy.
Right, taking advantage of the daddy, Let me say,
Daddy, I really want this MacBook, but Mom said no.
Right, or right, maybe you are 19, 20.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, you're like, I've been thinking, I'm going to start calling you Dad. At 19 and 20, depending on how our relationship has been, I'm probably going to have to ask you where that's coming from.
Right.
Probably going to have to ask you, like, where did that happen?
Right.
I mean, the first feeling is like, oh, cushy, that feels so good.
Yeah.
You're acknowledging my work. That's awesome. But depending on how much of a struggle you have been, I'm going to have to ask that. Just so we're on the same page, because
this could be a 180, and then there's something suspect about that.
It's and not only that, Daddy is a big name. And it's a big responsibility, and being my child. I mean, Marissa told you, it's not a game. Like there's no joke.
Right.
And what you've done, going into this, what have you done, since that monster age of 12 all the way through?
Right.
What have you done in that time frame?
But then my question becomes, you can be fickle all through the teenage years, whatever, that's to be expected. But 19, 20, 21, if you're going to start with the dad, then you better keep that till...
That's death do you part almost.
Right. You better keep that till we die.
Right. Or...
because you've decided. Right?
Right. That was a grown decision.
Correct.
Unless... And I have to accept that decision. So that's the other side. Like, it's the other side that the step parent has to say, no, that it may sound good and feel good, but know that child's ready. Know that they're ready. Like I say, man, I work hard for my kids.
Right.
And so when my kids call me daddy, it's because that's the title that I deserve. It's natural.
Yeah.
So to share that, you better be handling your business.
Because before you weren't ready for it, and now that you're calling me daddy, you may be.
You've signed the dotted line.
Right.
You put your scribbler on it and said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this in script. Forget the paper. Forget the printing. I'm
Right.
gonna put this in script and say, me calling you daddy is not Google Gaga.
Right.
Me calling you daddy is saying, I respect and honor.
Right.
You.
I'm acknowledging.
I'm acknowledging him, and I'm not going to be perfect, but we're never going to step backwards, and you know my standard.
Correct. The bond has been set. This is the baseline.
This is the baseline, and you know my standard.
Yeah.
So we know each other. So I can go back and forth in my ideas of when that should happen.
Right.
Because almost now, if you decided, let's say if you said, I'm going to call you dad, that is saying, yeah, the baseline has changed, right? And there is no complication in my brain about why or should I and how I'm going to deal with you.
Right.
It just becomes almost normal now. You've accepted. You pretty much said, I'm accepting who you are and all your flaws, and I don't have that many, but I have a few.
13% of you is flawed.
That's a big number, 13%, right? So, but you've accepted it and said, I know him.
Right.
I know the things he says and does is for my best benefit, and for me and for the family.
Decision made. Done.
Decision made. Done. Yeah.
Okay. Now that's a great version of events. What happens if the opposite happens, right? She's been gritting her teeth calling you Mr. Eric for, 10 years.
Right.
18, 19, 20 rolls around, out of the house, in college, in the military, doing whatever, living his or her best life.
Right.
And now this child decided, I don't have to call you Mr. anything anymore because I'm grown, and I'm going to call you Eric again.
Right. So at that point, you're grown. You're absolutely right. And there's nothing really I'm going to attempt to do, right? Because the glory comes later. And I've always handled my business.
Right.
I just have. That's where you can smile. And I remember one time me and my brother talking, and we looked at our kids one day, and when we said, well, I think he said, but one day you're going to have a family too. That's, we were having that conversation.
Right.
And it's so true. Like, we get older and you get older. And so how you deal with me now, right? Because I'm going to stand on truth. Right. I'm going to stand on what's right. I'm never going to waver from that.
My character's been tested and I've passed.
Yes. And and I'm going to grow.
Right.
So where your brother and sisters might say, but why are you talking about dad or pops like this is 2008?
Right.
Because it's definitely 2020.
Right.
And pops don't get down like that.
Yeah.
Because you know why? We're grown now.
Right.
So we've made it through.
We've seen when the rubber met the road.
Yeah, we've seen when the rubber hit the road, and he didn't swerve.
Right.
And we've seen some successes. We've seen 99% successes, and then the other percent is maybe where we've made some mistakes or where pops or dad made some mistakes.
Right.
That's a really small number, because if you have good intention, and if I'm looking out for you, trust me, everything else is extra.
That's the thing, is that I think that's the bond that matters the most out of being a step parent, is the love. If my intention, my love for you is guiding me, yeah, I may do some things off emotion sometimes because I'm human. Right. And even though I'm an adult and I'm a step parent or a parent, I sometimes I want to be petty. Right. Right. But I can't be, and I have to, live above board, and my character has to be 100% all the time. Right. That being said, I can stand the test of time and know that I'm doing the right thing if, in fact, even my wrong decisions were made with the best of intentions.
Right, yeah, I can stand on that wrong decision and say, well, I couldn't see around the corner.
Right.
Right, so
all I knew was that my love for you was so strong, and this was the only way to deal with it at that particular time. At least I felt it was the only way.
Yeah, and it's a good position to be in, because I know sometimes my girls right now, some of those decisions that could have went both ways. Like, okay, so I wasn't, I told you about the dating, right? Yeah. You said 12, 13?
Oh, Lord.
16. Yeah. So maybe I was the stickler about that. but it can go both ways.
Yeah.
So I can fall on my sword and say, okay, I could have loosened up the reins a little bit, or I can say, well, based on your behavior, and based on how you're designed,
it just didn't merit.
It didn't merit me taking that chance.
Right.
That you could have gotten hurt. We were big on no sleeping over.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah,
and if you wanted to sleep over, they would come over to the house, and then I would leave. Just how we did it. I'm old school, right? So if girlfriends want to come over, okay, cool. All right, I'll go hang out with my brothers. I'm good. You guys hang out, have a good time, and then Dad roll back
just
in.
extra cautious.
Let the kids be kids. Let them hang out. Or my wife would take them somewhere in Orlando and get a hotel room.
Yeah. Girls trip, whatever.
Girls trip, right. And so, looking back on it, there's some things that we brought into their lives that were old school. And maybe we could have wavered a little bit. But the flip side of that is it was out of love and out of protection. And so I'm never going to say it was wrong. I'm going to say maybe I could have adjusted it, maybe I couldn't have.
Right.
But I would rather say I did it out of your protection and out of love. And so I don't know what to tell you. Would I do it again? Quite possibility. Yeah. Have I changed a little bit with my, my younger ones? I guess so, because my kids sometimes tell me, I can't believe she says that to you. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. It's always going to be like that.
All right, so I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
All right.
Right, and then we're going to wrap up this conversation about titles. So, you're Mr. Eric. What are they calling their biological father?
Probably Poppy.
How do you take them calling their dad Poppy? Do you go, he doesn't deserve that?
That's a good question. That's such a good question.
When you compare and contrast, the parenting.
Yeah, it's a good question because
I'm sure there's plenty of people dealing with this going, damn, they'll call me Mr., Bob, and they're calling Dad, but Dad isn't doing what he needs to do.
Well, they don't even say Dad, they say Poppy, right?
Right,
so
Poppy.
Yeah. So Poppy just sounds even more deep.
Personal.
Yeah, it just sounds super personal. It would frustrate me. Right?
Yeah.
Just to be honest, it would frustrate me. I don't believe it frustrated me to a point that I would allow them to see it. And I don't even think I've ever shared that with my wife. But it frustrated me at times. In my mind, I would be thinking, he doesn't deserve that.
Yeah.
And how deep they would say it, right? Even at this point sometimes, when my oldest says, and she does so good at paying attention to she does really good at
being mindful.
Yeah. She does she's very mindful. And sometimes she has a conversation and I'm just like,
You get the twitching.
Yeah, I get the twitching, right? Especially if she says, Mom, so this happened, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
No one wants to hear about your dad and that side of the family. No one cares.
Yeah. And I keep it to myself, of course. And then there was times when my girls would have a jersey, and my one would have the Armstead jersey on.
Okay.
And the other one would have her last name jersey on. And I would have to talk myself off the shelf. That's where that sneaky wannabe petty comes in. Why you don't have that Armstead jersey on? That name ain't doing nothing right now, right? And but
no, that's interesting conversation too, because your last name is your identity, right? It's your name is your identity. So while you might be frustrated just the sight of a name that isn't your last name, for her it might just be as simple as, well, it's the name. That's my name. I don't know what to tell you.
Right, and because what she sees in our home under the flag of Armstead,
right?
I'm almost showing you how you should be proud of your name. I'm almost showing you that this is I'm always referencing who we are, what leadership is to my kids.
Right.
This is what we do. To my son, this is how you hold that name down. This is how you do not hold that name. So they always was seeing and hearing that, right? So so I'm almost teaching you that.
Right.
I'm almost showing you like this is how you handle that. And then, but when it happens, of course, I'm like, what's that? Why?
I'm sorry. What was that?
Right.
I don't recognize the name.
Right. Exactly. Right. Or we go out to dinner. Or we go out to dinner. We're talking about being sensitive. We went out to dinner.
Yeah.
So she books the reservation.
Yeah.
And it says her last name.
Yeah.
Party of her last name.
Yeah.
And my left eye just started turning.
Because now you have to respond to that last name.
And my right eye was doing the B-box, right? So can you imagine my left eye is like doing donuts and my right eye is like... And the funny part was, I think in that, I'm the only one that had that in his head.
Everyone was just like, all right, let's go eat.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
who cares whose name it's under? We got a table.
It's Carla.
Yeah.
She's making the reservation.
Yeah. There's something.
No big deal.
Yeah, right.
Meanwhile, for the first 7 minutes in the restaurant, I'm heated. I'm like I'm heated. I gotta talk myself off the ledge. I think my wife probably looked at me. She probably knew.
Yeah.
But she was like, I'm gonna diffuse him by not looking at him.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna kind of rub his head.
Right.
Give him a kiss.
Yeah.
And then it went bye-bye. I'm just
Relax.
But
yeah.
I mean, that was a few months ago.
Yeah.
So just kind of being raw about the levels of emotion that goes on, at least for me. And I know I'm not an anomaly.
Right.
Certain things I am. In my deep voice.
I'm just amazing.
That's not a cough, people, I promise. So it's just, those different things that you do, that you are sensitive to. And that is where I say, I hope that I handled it when they were younger the right way. And that's the 13%.
Right.
That's the 13%.
Those situations when they were younger.
Those situations, when they were younger, that you might magnify. So some advice I would give people that are dealing right now is, remember, it's not always personal to them.
Right.
Sometimes it's automatic dial.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like again, when you go into a room and you turn flick the switch on. You don't think about that. It's just, it's dark in here and your brain automatically goes, turn the light on.
Right.
It's a habit. It's a reflex. It's not even something you think about.
Right.
So someone's last name isn't something it might not be that personal to them outside of that's how I identify.
Right. And it's not, and it's not wrong.
Right.
Right. It's not wrong. And so don't make them feel wrong.
Right.
Right. That you guys decided to be in a blended family and there's more than one last name.
Right.
Right.
Especially if dad is doing what he's supposed to do.
Right.
If bio dad's in the picture doing what he has to do, you have to give him the respect. That is what it is.
Even if they're not, it's so much bigger. Their name is so much bigger than what their dad is doing, because their name behind that is generations. So behind
talking about ancestry, DNA.
You're talking about their great aunt who was amazing. But it's difficult, and all we can do is strive to, like I used to always say, and I still say it, if it's done out of love, then it'll work.
So at the end of the day, I think that in any relationship, whether it's with your stepchildren, friends, family, whatever, character matters.
Right.
The way you're perceived by society matters, and by friends and family. And I want to be a person whose character speaks for her actions, despite whatever situation I'm in, for someone to be able to say, no, she would not do that, or she would.
Right. I agree. And I believe that character matters, and that's the blended, baby.